looking at Massachusetts, right? Because this is a market where it's grown significantly, right? It starts to have a lot of external forces from other states coming around it, like New Jersey and others starting to pass adult use. And it was one where you have a lot of large scale operators as well as a lot of smaller businesses, right? And these large scale operators, they've scaled rapidly as far as canopy. And I thought it was interesting here to just look at how discounting has changed in Massachusetts in a calendar year, right? From June 23 to June 24, right? We saw the average item sold with a discount more than doubled, right? So that means that like, you know, we're just discounting more products. Now, are we discounting them more or less? No, not really. In some areas, it actually was overall the percent discount was a little less, but the proportion of products being discounted was much higher, right? And so I think it's just interesting to kind of just see like how these markets change and adjust. And I think you're going to see similar patterns. For example, in New Jersey, it's 4,000 a pound right now. Probably nobody's discounting because it moves faster than you can produce it. In 24 months, it's going to be a different story, right? And this is, I think, really important for brands to think about and understand. You think about the future as well, ultimately for retailers, right? As you start to benchmark pricing and think about the future of compression for you and how that ties back to the brands, these are all, relates really well together.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that this dovetails super well into like, okay, if this is what's happening on the wholesale side, right? If we're in a world where the overall percent of items receiving discounts on the wholesale side is increasing, uh, perhaps the average discount level of any given invoice or whatever is not changed, but the total number of products on it is increasing. Uh, what that does, understanding the fact that the driving force of retailers pricing is margin optimization on whatever they get back, right? Means that that discount behavior there passes almost seamlessly forward into the retail side, right? And ultimately onto the consumer side. Even though perhaps the incentives, what's driving that wholesale discount increase aren't necessarily immediately tied to like, hey, we know that there are consumers out there, right, who are actively stating we are looking for 20% of our items to have a discount attached to it, right? Like that's not what's happening. It's not like, there's like a group of people in Hollywood that got together and said, hey, we want 20% of all cannabis items discounted, right? And that's what then translates to on the retail side, what we're seeing, which is overall discounting as a percent of a store sale. So if a store made $100,000 in revenue last month, right now we're at the rate, I think it's around $20,000 on average, right? Of that was suppressed through discounts, right? And so that either means everything globally was discounted 20%, or perhaps 20% of the inventory was BOGOed, right? Down to like, whatever it is. But we're also seeing that rate go up. John was just showing the wholesale discount effect on in Massachusetts. This is what we're seeing on the retail out the door total discount rate in Massachusetts as well, up to 21%. A year ago, it was somewhere closer to like 17%, right? California up to 17%. Here goes 15%. I checked data. We have data going back a couple of years. That's up from 13% 2 years ago, right? As markets are maturing, it's very clear that this discounting is coming through, right? And again, part of this is like, well, there's a lot of different ways discounts. Maybe the retailer is just giving like, maybe there's more holidays and like we're discounting more on holidays. When we actually look at like where are these discounts coming from on the retail side, and this is where all of this really matters, half of it, almost exactly half of it is very specifically, measurably related to product-based BOGOs, 20% off, mix and match, whatever it is, which is directly driven, expiring inventory, which is directly driven from those wholesale discounts, right? I think we all know that as part of that margin optimization effort as a retailer, you go back and you make sure that brand is covering part of that discount, make sure that brand is crediting on the invoice due to the expiring inventory on that overstock. That is directly translating into an increase in discount rate that consumers on the market are feeling and receiving. But again, that's not necessarily because those consumers on the market want it. Right now, when I'm not saying that consumers don't want discounts, I think there's like a common thing everyone thinks people like discounts. Yes. But what we're pointing out is that this is a supply side driven behavior that is happening in the market currently. It is supply side driven, and it's coming from all of those buying and inventory interactions that then ultimately translate to half of everything you're giving away on the marketing side is driven by those inventory interactions at
Yeah.
the end of the day, right? So the inventory is the thing driving the promotional stuff. You may be like, hey, but we have some simplistic program on loyalty redemptions or repeat customer things. At the end of the day, if I can get a BOGO on Alien Labs, right, that is a 50% net effective discount for me as a consumer. I don't care about getting a 10% discount because like it's my third visit or something like that, right? That is not the thing that's going to drive my behavior compared to the fact that I know that if I just wait, eventually they're going to liquidate like 20% of their inventory that's overstocked and I'm going to get half off everything.
Yeah.
Right. And that's my expectations of as a consumer that start to build up through this data and what we're seeing.
Yeah. We had a question come in around the discounts, right? Are they ongoing, such as, volume tier preferred, or is it more promo pricing? On the wholesale side, what I did when we were assessing our discounting, it can be volume, right? It can be preferred pricing, which you can manage and have for an individual client. But what I did do is I isolated essentially everything that seemed like a free or a sample or any kind of promos, but got rid of all those, right? Because I wanted to really look at true unit transactions. Now, as far as like, were they passed through to the retail? Unfortunately, I don't have the connection to all the point of sales to necessarily know all of that data. Now, Andrew might be able to infer a little bit there around, if that discount's offered here, how is that passed through to the retail, right? Is it a promotion? Like, hey, I love the term vendor sponsored discounts.
Yeah.
Which there are probably some true vendor sponsored discounts out there, but like, hey, I need you to sell this to me for less because I need to sell that. I don't really think should be defined as a vendor sponsored discount personally. Now that could be maybe up for debate, but
Yeah.
yeah, what do you think there, Andrew? Like, do you see like this idea of like typically with retail they're discounting? Is it coming back with this kind of, oh, we gave you the promo and it's pushed through, we're doing that? Or is it like you said, seems like really it's like just product related, it's Flower Friday, it's whatever Saturday, it's this, and it isn't necessarily based on this specific vendor, or what do
Yeah.
you?
So what I would say is what we are getting back is because when you look at the data on those individual discount codes, those individual discount setups, it's not like they mark, hey, this setup, this specific one was sponsored by a vendor or not, but the specificity of them, again, with 50% of them being related to a specific, and it's not just category, but it's SKU, right? It's literally like Jeter 1 grams are on sale BOGOs, this specific brands. And then when we ask retailers, what we get back is, yeah, a vendor sponsored that, right? Like I'm good discounting that much because the vendor sponsored it. So I would say what we're seeing in that data and through that is that about half of all discounts have a vendor sponsorship associated with it, right? Across all the retail, approximately. Right now, different retailers have different things. Some retailers will only drive vendor sponsored. Some say, hey, we're not going to, but we are going to drive a larger one to liquidate some slow moving inventory. And then on the flip side, they then ask for a discount on the next invoice, right? And perhaps they're not connecting it as directly. But we're thinking it looks like, based on this data, about half of all discounts given out at the retail level have some vendor association or connection associated. Yeah. And again, I do want to emphasize that the discount level that a consumer can receive from those types of discounts tends to be large compared to the discount level that consumer is going to receive from like a points redemption or a multi-visit special or something, right? Like again, a BOGO is literally a 50% effective discount.